This episode of Fluid Power Forum is sponsored by IFP Motion Solutions Incorporated, the leader at engineering electronics into fluid power distribution. IFP spans the 13 central states from Minnesota to Texas. For more information, visit ifpusa.com.
When I started 20 years ago at Rota, we were seeing that it was not uncommon to hear about $5 an inch to gun drill a cylinder rod to install a sensor inside. So if you have a cylinder that's maybe 4 feet long, 5 feet long, you can start to see how just the cost of machining that rod was cost prohibitive. Now I'm hearing people talk about $1.25 an inch is pretty prevalent. I'm hearing people say in some cases higher volume, it's well under $1 to gun drill that cylinder rod. So we just see the industry as it matures, the cost of sensors come down, the cost of installing them come down, and it's just more accepted in more and more environments.
Welcome to Fluid Power Forum, a podcast of the National Fluid Power Association. I'm your host, Eric Lietke, and it's my job to interview interesting people who are moving fluid power technology forward. If you'd like to be part of the show, we ask that you follow us on LinkedIn. You can find us there at the National Fluid Power Association. And make sure to keep sharing those interesting and innovative uses of fluid power with our hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. If you see an interesting application of fluid power and you want to learn more about it, share it on social media with that hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. And you just might hear it discussed on a future episode of Fluid Power Forum. Also, please subscribe to the show. You'll find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on all the other popular podcatching services. Wherever you find us, subscribe to the show, and then give us a quick rating. Those ratings really do help promote the show and allow more and more of our friends in the industry to join in on these important conversations. Today we have a special episode to present to you. It's a recording of a recent CID Council webinar, which occurred in February of 2026. Now, CID stands for Controls, IoT, and Data, and that is a new membership category that the National Fluid Power Association recently launched, recognizing the importance of those technologies on the performance of fluid power systems, controls, IoT, and data services. This webinar was hosted by my colleague Mike Lietke, and his guest was Mark Hoffman, Senior Vice President of Rota Limited. Founded in 1964, Rota Limited specializes in transducers, connectors, and high-end sensors and the ways that they can improve the performance of fluid power systems. It's a great conversation, and I think you'll enjoy listening to it.
Welcome, everybody. This is actually our inaugural visit into the wonderful world of webinars from our controls, IoT, and data membership classification. And going to explain just a little bit about that. My name is Mike Lietke. I am, for those who do not know me yet, the Director of Member Engagement and Relations, but I'm also the liaison for the CID Council. And the CID is a new membership classification that originally sprung from the then current members of NFPA that served the controls, the IoT, and the data areas that serve our industry. And it had been kicked around for a little bit throughout the board of directors and among the membership that this might be just a slightly different type of classification that might need to have some of their own conversations so that the industry could stay informed better, that they could have their own voice and bring important topics up to the more traditional side of the industry. and some other very beneficial things to NFPA. So in November of 2024, just a little over a year ago, we started this membership classification once again with standing members of NFPA and have been adding to that since. And we'll speak a little bit more to that. But this is the first of a series of quarterly webinars. And the idea here is to introduce you to some of the trends, some of the technology, some of what those that are out there on the front lines of this area of the industry are seeing, as well as to introduce you to them and their companies so that you know what they do and they do well as they go out there into the business world. Today, the uh, the freshest of the guinea pigs here is Mark Hoffman. And we thank him very much for coming to us from Rota Limited. And he's going to correct me anywhere that I fall off the beam as we work through live theater here. But Mark, thank you very much for being here. And we're just going to make this a very conversational type of webinar, after which we will post it onto our website and allow those that maybe had to cut out or weren't able to be here right away to join us later and see it at their leisure or when they do have the opportunity. Mark, let's go with this first. Why don't we start with your company? Tell us about Rota. One of the things that many people, because of your longevity, particularly, well, globally, but also in North America, may know you, but many may not. And
Sure.
tell us who you are, what you do, kind of how you came to be serving and producing the products that you do at this time. Then I'm going to ask you a little bit about yourself and how you came to
Okay.
be there, just as a little bit of history.
Sure. So Rota was started in 1965, and in the 90s they started utilizing or building and manufacturing linear transducers. I started with the company in the early 2000s, and we had a paradigm shift where we wanted to start looking more at the mobile market and the hydraulics associated with that. So our products have been catered towards that market. So we've been working over the years to always make the products more robust, make them smaller, just allowing us to go into more and more applications anywhere a hydraulic cylinder is utilized. And then we take it a step further, is taking that technology, as long as we have a sensor and a magnet, now we can take that technology into hydraulic oil tanks, or we can take it into rotating equipment with our rotary sensors. So we're really a company, an engineering company that just has the ability to build a lot of sensors, high volume sensors. So I always try to leave it with people after I try to explain to them all the things that we do is we're an engineering company. So please just ask us. You see roughly what we do, but ask us if there's something else you'd like us to do. And we often look at applications like that.
So do you find yourself, as you're doing product development and such, do you find yourself pulled in by current and potential clients? Or is there also a mix of, I think we see an opportunity here, we should devote some time and some development effort toward this field or this new ground?
It is both. We do have some customers that are insistent that they know we can do something, so we will work with them. And then other times, I'll get a call from our engineering folks, and they'll just say, "Hey, we came up with this idea that we think would be very suited for the industry." And we go about it that way as well. So we take all information and put it in a hopper and see what works. Talk to people about it, and if it looks like it's viable, then we'll go forward with it.
Hmm. How did you get there? Did you start yesterday? I'm thinking not. Actually, we've talked a little bit beforehand here, and it's quite a great story. So please, Mark, let us know.
Sure. I got to work with Rota because my previous boss at General Electric left and went to work for Rota. And I got a call from him about a year later, and he said, "We're looking at getting more into the mobile market with the sensors." He said, "I was told that if I knew of somebody that had a farming background, had been in the military, had an education, a degree in electrical, and had worked with prior sensor companies, that'd be a great fit." And he simply told him, "I know exactly who you'd like." And so it was a quick interview, and the rest is history.
And how long ago was that? I'm sorry if you did mention that.
Well, so I started working for Rota 20 years ago, but my journey was after I got out of the Army. I used the GI Bill to go to college to get an electrical degree. And then from there, I went to work for Honeywell, where I was tier 1 and tier 2 tech support on the pressure sensors, load cells, and instrumentations that division manufactured. And then I went to work for General Electric as a regional sales engineer, working on, again, pressure sensors, but then calibration equipment and also products that were designed to basically be the standard for calibration of pressure sensors. And then from there, I've been with Rota for just about 20 years, so 30 years dealing with sensors, instrumentations, that kind of thing.
Excellent. And it sounded, so you were talking about, if I'm reading my notes correctly here, you're talking about your work within the mobile fields as well as the oil fields. Can you speak a little to the specifics of what might be different in setting up products for those, particularly in this CID sphere that you guys operate in? Was that a
Sure.
clear enough question? Yeah.
It is. It is. When we delineate sort of our groups as the oil and gas or more the mobile, the big difference there is with the oil and gas. A lot of times they need hazardous area certifications. So you think about our sensors are used on drill rigs, both land-based and ocean-based. We're on some of our sensors need to be rated for extreme depth of, say, ocean operation. So that the products for the oil and gas tend to be much, much more robust because all of a sudden, you're 3,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. That's a whole different environment than a cylinder that's on a combine harvester. So just different environments.
So is that thicknesses? Is that seals? Is that connections? Is that all of it? I mean, guide me in as kind of a neophyte, not trained in your world.
It is all of those that you mentioned. So, for example, if we know it's going to live subsea, that's a particular connector that's out there, be it a Subcon or a Seacon or a couple other companies like that. So, whole different animal as far as the pressures involved. I would say then when we start talking about the mobile industry, we've got to be a little bit more concerned about the environment that it lives in, maybe how the sensors have been installed in the cylinder. So all of the sales engineers at Rota, I shouldn't say all, but a majority of them have some sort of technical degree, be it electrical, be it mechanical. So the guys, and as most people know, we will ask you a ton of questions because we want to understand the application so that we don't get you the wrong product for that application. So as soon as we're working with somebody that we believe is an oil and gas application, we'll start going down that road saying, is this a hazardous area? We have to know these things because if the sensor is not rated for that environment, it could cause an explosion. So we have to know these kind of things.
We'll continue with the show in just a moment, but first let me share some exciting news about our Fluid Power Forum podcast. We're launching Fluid Power Forum Plus, a premium listener membership offering exclusive content and special event opportunities for our most dedicated listeners. When you sign up for free on the NFPA website, you'll be able to unlock exclusive episodes, live recordings, transcripts, and invitations to private networking events, each offering even greater insights into interesting and innovative applications of fluid power technology. More exclusive benefits will be announced soon. To register, head over to nfpa.com/plus. That's nfpa.com/plus.
So if I'm a potential client of yours, let's just say I'm earlier in my career or whatnot, and haven't set up a whole bunch of these things. I know that your sales engineers are very professional in what they do and such, but what can I do to prepare myself for those meetings with Rota or a firm like yours that allows for success, obviously two-way success, because you want your product to shine and work for
Right.
what they need, and they have their needs. They know what their needs are, or maybe they need a little help refining what those needs are, but still they know where they're trying to get. So how can they prepare for those conversations with you?
I say maybe ask us for some documentation. We have some documentation that will help somebody understand the questions that we would like to have answered so they could read over that information. We have a lot of installation documents that, again, we try to get people to read those. And then that just starts a real good conversation about, well, why am I doing this? Or why should I do that? And I try to tell everybody that to have a successful application, generally there's the three of us involved. There's the end user, there's the cylinder manufacturer, and then there's us as the manufacturer of the sensor. And we all have to communicate the needs so that by the end of the day, when the product gets out to the field, it's ready for that environment.
Excellent. So you have seen 3 decades of evolution in various aspects of the business. What are you able to record and sense now that you couldn't 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Um, take me through that history a little bit.
Sure. When I started at Rota, it was very prevalent that we would compete with a resistive technology because that was a fairly low cost technology. But as those products started to get deployed into the field more and more, they started to realize that there are some issues with a technology that rubs on itself. There's obviously a cycle life associated with that. So it soon became required in this linear sensor industry that we want to have a non-contact technology. So that's been one of the big buzzwords for the last, I'd say 15 years is non-contact technology. And then we start to see as specifications evolve, there are higher and higher electrical certifications that people are asking for on their sensors. So we're always having to increase the robustness of the sensor, just the electronics, the capability of maybe being associated next to a noisy motor that can cause problems with sensors. So all of those specifications just keep getting better and better as time goes on.
Excellent. And are you plugged in well enough with the uses of that data on the other end to say how it's being used now relative to years past? Or maybe it's just become available now and we're seeing what we can do with it. But how would you answer that kind of vague question?
We are seeing a lot more information where people, for example, for efficiency and safety. So we see a lot of people, for example, in the agricultural market where they're using our sensors for steering because they're receiving GPS signals. So
Yeah.
again, having grown up on a farm, you understand that as these machines get bigger and bigger, all of a sudden you've got a head out there that can be 60 feet in width. Well, if you're the operator and you're looking out over that head so that you don't miss any crops out in the field, you might have a safety margin of maybe a foot or two because you can't really see over there. Now that it's GPS driven, you can have that machine taking that full swath out of the field without leaving any product out in the field. So it's efficiency. And then we're seeing too that as these machines get bigger and bigger, there's a lot of safety applications where if machines have to, again, I'll go back to agriculture. If you're looking at a big disc or a planter that needs to fold, it needs to do it in a certain sequence so that it doesn't actually damage itself. So we see our products used for that as well. And then I have asked some engineers, what are you planning on doing with this sensor, with this information? And they just kind of smile. They say, once we have a sensor in the side of the cylinder, there's a lot of things we can do. And they obviously aren't going to tell me.
Right, right. Well, that's, that's the secret sauce, right? Um,
Right.
so not from a Rota standpoint, or not specifically from a Rota standpoint, um, what are the hindrances to the next generation of to developing the next generation of sensors? Or to reframe that, what are the opportunities toward developing the next generation of sensors?
I think for us, what we keep seeing is seeing a smaller and smaller sensor so that it can go into more and more cylinders. But we also found out with really long stroke cylinders, we would see that the cost to gun drill a cylinder was the prohibitive cost in the application. So here's another great example. When I started 20 years ago at Rota, we were seeing that it was not uncommon to hear about $5 an inch to gun drill a cylinder rod to install a sensor inside. So if you have a cylinder that's maybe 4 feet long, 5 feet long, you can start to see how just the cost of machining that rod was cost prohibitive. Now I'm hearing people talk about $1.25 an inch is pretty prevalent. I'm hearing people say in some cases higher volume, it's well under $1 to gun drill that cylinder rod. So we just see the industry as it matures, the cost of sensors come down, the cost of installing them come down, and it's just more accepted in more and more environments. So I tell all the new people that come to work at Rota, it's like the bell-shaped curve that we all learned about in college, just at the very beginning of taking off in that bell-shaped curve. And I always think that, well, someday we're going to get to midpoint, but we just keep opening up more and more opportunities in the market, and we're still at the beginning of that bell-shaped curve.
And what of the component materials that that create that too? What types of movements have you seen away from and toward, um, that's allowing for the changes that you're making within your products?
One of the things I've seen as far as just the material is when I first started, it was all stainless steel welded. And now on some of our lower cost, high volume sensors, they've actually gone to aluminum tubes and everything is press fit. So we're reducing cost by the material, reducing cost by the assembly process.
Nice. And that might seem like a pretty good segue here. It sounds like you guys have some pretty exciting things in the mix here with some new facility and capabilities that brings with it. Can you fill us in on that a little bit?
Sure. We're very proud that we have just opened up our second manufacturing facility. So it's a 40,000 square foot facility that as we continue to evolve and bring on more and more applications, more and more product going out the door, we just needed a second factory to handle all of that excess. And for all
And
of you that will be at the NFPA conference a little bit later on, Jake and James will be at the show. They'll be exhibiting there. So they might even have some pictures if you want to ask them. They'll certainly have some new products to show you. But I would encourage all of you to stop by and say hi to them. And I imagine a lot of you will know Jake. James is newer with the company, but it'd be a great opportunity for you to meet him as well.
yeah, and that actually is a great point. We do have tables set up for more of a focus kind of mini trade show environment to go along with all of the speakers and the networking events and that kind of thing that are featured within our annual conference and our in-person events. And we're very happy that you guys are taking advantage of that, because although you're new to NFPA, you're certainly not new to the industry, and this should
Right.
be a good meeting point for those that would like to get to know um, get to know you better, so to speak.
Right.
I'm just I'm firing a warning here to our attendees. If you were going to have any questions, I'm going to be asking for those in a little bit, and you can go ahead and start filling the chat with that, and we'll curate those and bring those through. But let's go ahead and put on your great Karnak hat, and that kind of dates me, I think, to the old Johnny Carson days.
Oh, I know it
Um,
well.
yes, yes, and so you got your crystal ball. You're reading the tea leaves. What are you seeing in the future? What are we moving toward? And you touched on some of this, but what are we moving toward? In two-part question. In the industry, maybe first, and speaking to whatever you could speak to for Rota, second. What are you seeing as we go forward into the future, so to speak?
Right. Well, it's interesting as any of us that have been around for a while, we see all sorts of trends, and I'm sure 10 years ago we all remember how people were talking about, well, surely hydraulics are going to die, electrification is going to take over the world. And now that we've had some time to start looking at that and digesting that and understanding the ramifications of uh, where do the minerals from for all of that? How do we dispose of them? And now that we see some of the large oil and gas companies were saying we're even going to get out of fossil fuel by 2050. Well, now that they're starting to see when they aren't so subsidized for all of the green energy, they've done a 180 and said we're going to be drilling for a while. We're going to be exploring and looking for that petroleum that is really the heart of everything that we're talking about here. For Rota, we just continue to work with more and more customers to understand where they may need sensors and how we can provide solutions that way. At the NFPA conference, one of the new products will be a rotary sensor, and that just takes us in a whole nother industry where we've been predominantly associated directly with the hydraulic cylinder. Now we're getting away from it. We're still providing all kinds of solutions for hydraulic cylinders, but kind of branching out to more rotary that is not maybe utilized right there with the cylinder.
Excellent. Um, if anybody does have those questions, please go ahead and put that in the chat. So far, it looks like Mark is doing such a great job of explaining things that there's nothing currently there. I guess I would ask, as we're moving toward a wrap here, what, if anything, would we be remiss if it hadn't been mentioned with this opportunity here and the conversation that we're having and the information we're sharing? What would you like to get out there that we haven't covered yet?
I feel like we've covered everything from a 20,000-foot view, but as I've shared, I whenever I wrap up a meeting, I generally ask people if you have any kind of position measurement requirements, just give us a call. We're an engineering company that we can do a lot of things. So if you don't see it, ask for it and certainly ask for clarification. As I say, a lot of our guys have great experience that maybe if we don't have a solution, I know I've helped people with understanding maybe what kind of panel meters might work in their application or what kind of pressure sensors or load cells. So we definitely just want to help out the industry and just grow as much as we can.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mike and Mark, this is Pete. There is a question in the Q&A area.
Oh, thank you.
You want me to read it for
Go
you?
ahead, Pete.
Yeah, okay. So I was wondering to know, does Rota apply modeling and simulation for product development? If yes, could you share how modeling and simulation fit in the design process and to what extent it is used? Any software or tools in particular?
Not, I would say we don't use any modeling per se, because if I understand the question right, a lot of times that modeling is going to be done in the actual cylinder that the sensor lives in. So I don't know if that helps. Kind of like if you're
Antonio,
using, go ahead.
go ahead. You can finish that thought, please.
Well, I was going to say again, I'll date myself. If we're using something like finite analysis, I don't think that would necessarily be done by our sensor, but it would be more of the entire hydraulic cylinder as an assembly, because you're looking at, bending forces, things of that nature. So please, if
Antonio,
they'd like to reply, did that answer that question? Is that where that was going?
that's exactly what I was going to ask. Antonio, if that answered that question, we'll let the silence in the channel go. If not, please add to that. And by the way, I was over on the chat line. I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I am with Teams, and wasn't aware that there were two different channels here. So I'm on the Q&A line now. All right, it looks like you got to that one pretty
Okay.
well. Thank you, Antonio, for that question. Um, I think that we're probably at a good place to wrap up now.
Okay.
And I want to very, very, very much thank Mark Hoffman and for Rota Limited for allowing him this opportunity to tell us about them. And for those of you and those of us who don't know them as well, and hopefully we came out of it with a little bit of a better understanding as to how they approach the market, kind of Mark's depth of history within it, and some ideas on what they're seeing and how they're serving the industry. If there are any questions that you do have, please, they're going to be at our annual conference here in New Orleans in a couple of weeks, and they'll be at their table. The invite's already out there. Mark invited you to stop by that table just outside the main conference hall there. And I thank you, everybody that was able to sign on. This is Mike Lietke once again for NFPA, and I look forward to the next quarter when we have another one of these. And let us know when you have the opportunity what you'd like to see more of within these, as we want to make sure that they're serving you, our membership, and making sure that we're driving forward our industries that we serve. So thanks once again, Mark. I look
Thank
forward
you.
to meeting you in person and seeing you very soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And that is going to wrap things up for this episode of Fluid Power Forum. My thanks to Mark Hoffman of Rota Limited, who in a way has been my guest on this episode of the show. If you want to connect with him, learn more about Rota and their many services, you can drop him an email, and we will put a link to his email address in the show notes for this episode. Remember, if you like our podcast, and we hope you do, please follow us on LinkedIn. You'll get all kinds of updates there about the show and other activities of the National Fluid Power Association. You can find us on LinkedIn at that address, the National Fluid Power Association. And please keep sharing those interesting and innovative uses of fluid power with our hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. It's a great way for you to tell us what kind of topics you'd like to hear covered on the show. Fluid Power Forum is a podcast of the National Fluid Power Association. I'm your host, Eric Lietke, reminding you to join us next time in the forum.